Episode 3 of We Are Who We Are was titled Right Here, Right Now, number 3. Fracture begins to form within the friend group following Caitlyn and Sam's breakup. While Sam turns to open arms of Britney, Caitlyn is judged for spending too much time with Fraser. Later, Maggie attends the Chioggia Festival with the neighborhood women and finds an unexpected companion in Jenny. Meanwhile, the progress Colonel Wilson has made in her new role is derailed when she decides to deploy her troops early, and her complex relationship with Fraser is rattled when his crush becomes her only ally. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again with my weekly recap, breakdown, and review of the latest episode of HBO's We Are Who We Are, episode 3, titled Right Here, Right Now, number 3. An episode that doesn't really focus on just one character like we've got in the first 2 episodes, but this time around, not only is Caitlyn and Fraser kind of figuring out who they are, but we see the supporting cast is doing the same thing. I'm very excited to talk about it in the spoiler discussion. But before we dive into the details, as you can see on the screen now, make sure you're following me on all my other social media accounts. That way you all can stay up to date with what's going on over here at Movie Files and get some of my latest insight on the latest movie and TV news out there. If you are new to this channel, welcome. Definitely subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my We Are Who We Are reviews, my other HBO reviews, other TV show reviews, movie reviews, live streams, and all the fun things we do on this channel. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Helps out the channel, but I also really appreciate it. And in the comments below, guys, let me know what you all thought about this 3rd episode. Again, not really focusing on one character, but we get the majority of our cast being highlighted in this episode, from seeing the relationship between Fraser and Caitlyn, but also the relationship between their parents and their friends and so on and so forth. So let me know your pros, your cons, and what you hope to see in the weeks ahead of this show. So overall thoughts before I get into this recap. This was a really interesting episode because, again, the first 2 episodes, we got Fraser and his family and then kind of introducing the supporting cast. Episode 2 kind of reverses it, and we get the perspective of Caitlyn and kind of her family situation. But this time around, we not only see Fraser and Caitlyn's relationship has grown since the last time we've seen them, but we learn more about Maggie and Sarah, and Maggie and Jenny maybe having a relationship that just goes beyond a friendship. And we see Richard and his tension between Sarah being the colonel. And we also see some tension with the friendship, right? With Britney and Sam maybe having a thing, Craig and, Danny kind of not knowing who he is as a person. So there's a lot going on within this episode, and I really appreciated all the stuff that we got. It's some really interesting conversations, and I think some interesting storylines we could explore later on. But let's get into this breakdown here in this recap, opening up with Caitlyn and Fraser on a boat hanging out for the first time. So again, this particular episode, I am to assume that their friendship kind of has blossomed off screen, because the last time we've seen both of them in 2 scenes in the first 2 episodes, it was very quick reactions, quick dialogue between the 2, but nothing really establishing their friendship other than maybe episode 2 when we saw Fraser gifting those clothes to Caitlyn. But I am to assume by the opening of this scene here that they have been friends for maybe a couple days, maybe a couple weeks, because there seems to be that type of tension going on with the friends, and also Richard kind of observing their friendship. So we got an off-screen friendship taking place so far, which I'm okay with, but let me know how you guys feel about that. If you would have liked to have seen their relationship kind of prosper and grow on screen. But as they're talking on the boat, they're talking about poetry and why Fraser loves poetry and reading poems, and Caitlyn asks him if he's ever kissed someone before, and then particularly if he ever kissed Mark, which we don't know that much about Mark. Some of the comments think that Mark may have died, and so on and so forth. And obviously, Mark, I would assume Mark was a friend of his or potentially lover of Fraser back in New York, but only time will tell. But he mentions to her that it wasn't a fast feeling, right? Going back to him reading poetry and just feeling something more for Mark than just something, sexual or something just kissing. It meant more to him. So it'll be really interesting to see what we get with this Mark character. But as we kind of move forward, we see Kate and Fraser return home, and this is where you see Richard kind of seems a little perturbed about their relationship, right? He seems to be kind of upset that she's spending so much time with him. Is it because he wants his daughter to be hanging out with other people, or is it because of Fraser's mom? So there's definitely some tension there, as we can see with Richard. We see Sam and Kate have a scene where Sam breaks up with Kate, and honestly, Kate wasn't really heartbroken. She was just like, okay, it's fine with me. And we saw that Sam was kind of taken back by that, and he seems to be more affected by this breakup than she is, as she's texting Fraser about going to dinner. So interesting to see why Sam broke up with her. Was it because she's spending more time with Fraser? Is it because he has feelings for Britney? Really interesting to see where that storyline goes. As we kind of move forward, we do see, speaking of Britney, we see her comforting Sam and, about the breakup being hard on him, and it's looking like she's kind of making a move on Sam. I don't know if this is something that will fracture relationship between Britney and Caitlyn, if this is something she's been feeling for a while. So again, the characters like Sam, Craig, Danny, and Britney are kind of, obviously secondary supporting cast members, but I wonder how much of their storylines will play into the main thread. As we move forward, we see a quick but interesting scene between Fraser returning to the book of poems, and he runs to that major that he seems to have a crush on, and this was the major, I think his name was Jonathan, that we saw in episode 1, that, Fraser walked in on him in the shower, and Jonathan didn't seem to really care, so it's really interesting to see that dynamic kind of play out, especially after what happens at the end of this episode. But we can tell that Fraser gets excited when he sees Jonathan and hangs out with Jonathan, or not hangs out, but talks to him. So that's something to keep an eye out for future episodes. We see Britney not confronting, but really just kind of catching up with Kate and telling her how Sam feels and that it's really hard for him, this breakup. And Caitlin's like, why is it hard for him? He's the one that broke up with me, which again, why did Sam do that if he's going to be all heartbroken about it? Was he testing Kate to see if she really cared about him? Who knows? Again, these are all 14-year-old kids still learning themselves and learning relationships with others. So we see that, Britney not only brings up the Sam situation, but also she says, hey, is everything okay? We haven't been hanging out as much. And, Kate kind of reassures that, yeah, we're still friends. I'm just, hanging out with Fraser more. So I definitely think that relationship will kind of maybe have some more drama and some tension between those two characters. But as we kind of move forward, this is a really interesting conversation within the show, which is the transgender conversation between Kate and Fraser as they're kind of looking online, and him kind of explaining what Kate may be experiencing right now in her life. And we can definitely see why they gravitate towards each other, because it seems to me within this scene that they both are comfortable with each other in these conversations. They're both exploring their sexuality, and it was just a really interesting conversation to see those two young, again, 14-year-old kids not being confined to just the norms, as we kind of get the explanation between what Fraser considers a transgender and how they're able to not be defined by labels or being put in a box. So just a really good conversation. And it seems like they don't want to be labeled either, and which I think not being a part of the norms of society. So really interesting conversation. And we see the relationship again continue to form, and them just exploring the sexuality, but them just having someone to lean on, which I think is the central theme in this episode and also potentially this season. As we kind of move forward, we see another somewhat of an episode by Fraser. And let me know in the comments, guys, is it something that we think he suffers from some kind of disorder, some type of thing where he just has these outbursts, where we see this dinner scene, he's pissed that the sauce wasn't there, that the dish is disgusting. He tells him not to eat anymore. And we see, again, more of this kind of weird relationship with Sarah telling him, kind of embarrassing him about the Lady Gaga scene. And I'm thinking like, you better stop it before he slaps you, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But it's just so interesting to see what it is that Fraser goes through. And we talk about it a little bit later in a couple scenes from here, but I'm just really interested to see what exactly is these episodes that Fraser has that we've seen in the first episode and this episode. So we see another side of Richard, right? Again, Richard seems to be upset about Caitlyn hanging out with Fraser more, but he's really pissed by the way, Caitlyn left their boat. And even before then, we see that Danny, there's some jealousy there between the two siblings, where Danny sees it as Richard spending more time with Caitlyn. He seems to be really upset about that. But again, going back to that scene, with the boat, Richard says, young lady, and Caitlin's like, that's the first time you ever called me that. And he says, was the first time you've ever messed up the boat. So really interesting moment there about their relationship that seems to be really strong, kind of maybe falling apart as Caitlin's kind of figuring out who she is. But again, Danny being really jealous that they seem to be spending more time together than Danny and Richard. So remember, I'm talking about, maybe Fraser slapping his mom. Well, he does something even worse this time, where after, they have the dinner, the two, Sarah and Maggie, are talking, and then out of nowhere, Fraser comes and grabs Sarah by the back of her head, tells her that he's going to kill her, and he hates her for embarrassing him in front of, as Sarah calls it, his girlfriend, which he doesn't like that term. But again, guys, what are these outbursts? How many times does it happen? How often does it happen? How violent does it get? Their relationship is just so complex. It seems to me like Sarah and Fraser are not really mother and son. It's almost like friends, that they're just like very interesting relationship, to say the least. And again, Fraser was pissed at his mom, and then especially when she says, "Oh, don't be jealous." because, Caitlyn likes me, which again goes to the scene that we'll talk about later on, but just very complex and not healthy relationship between those two. We see Richard, as I had mentioned, making some interesting comments, and Richard has made some interesting comments in the last episode too, where he's talking about how he assumes that the relationship between Sarah and Maggie is, there's a man in a relationship, there's a woman in a relationship, and he doesn't, putting a label on them, right? It's just really interesting to see that dynamic of Richard use Sarah and Maggie, and if he has any problems with them being in a lesbian relationship and being married. So it'll really be interesting to see where that storyline goes. We see more again of this complicated relationship between Sarah and Fraser, as he's having some breathing issues, which I don't know if it correlates with his outbursts, but we see Sarah embracing him and letting him sleep in their bed, and her hugging him as they're going to bed. So again, it seems like this is a common theme. Maggie's kind of used to it at this point, but again, it's just really interesting to see again what these outbreaks are, these episodes, his medical condition, if there is one, but very interesting moments here. We get more of the military moments with Sarah kind of walking to the office, seeing, all the different men of power, the president, Obama. I think the show takes place in 2016. So we see her just, appreciating the U.S. Men in charge, but then also as she's walking up the stairs, she sees Major Jonathan, and, it's a really interesting scene. She sees Hillary Clinton on the screen. I don't know if you guys noticed, she said that, she's my type, but she's not like me. I don't know if that's referring to her political beliefs, if she's more of a Republican, or if it's something more to that moment of her, talking about Hillary Clinton and her taste in women and not being like a person like her. Very interesting moment there, to say the least, but I think it's more of her being more of a Republican than it is a Democratic. But as we kind of move forward, we get a quick scene with Maggie trying to fit in with the wives of the town, and there seems to be a little bit of some type of animosity between Jenny and Maggie, which we'll talk about their relationship moving forward. We see Danny confronting Kate of breaking up the group, where things get really heated, where Fraser kind of steps in and Danny grabs him and threatens to kill him. Everyone's threatening to kill each other in this episode, and he doesn't care who his mom is. So we see, again, Danny just has a lot of anger, especially towards Kate and now towards Fraser, we'll see. So we move forward, and this is the moments that I kind of really appreciate this show. Again, this whole show is just kind of just like a day in the life. It doesn't feel like there's a camera there. It feels like you're a part of this group. It feels like you're the camera just observing these people's lives. But probably my favorite scene in this episode is we see Kate and Fraser talking about how others perceive them and others think they're dating and if they think they're weird. And just the thing that took away from that scene, and also too, Danny's talking about, or, Kate's talking about, oh, do you like my brother? Or, Fraser saying, oh, I saw you look at that girl's ass. And just what I took from that scene is just them being comfortable with each other, right? And also just the importance of just having someone to lean on, having someone to talk to, and expressing yourself is important, not only for these characters, but just taking it outside of the show, just important in life. So this is why I love this show so far. It's just, again, it is very important to know who you are as a person, but also having someone to lean on and having someone to talk to your feelings about, which I thought was a really beautiful scene. And they also make an agreement to never kiss, which we'll see how that goes. But, Maggie and Jenny, man, I think it's pretty... There seems to be a friendship development there, but it seems to also be something more of a flirtation going on between two, which will really complicate how, obviously, Richard would feel about his wife, Jenny, and Maggie hooking up. And if this is something that Maggie does on a regular, flirting with the other wives, I don't know, but I definitely think that this is something to keep an eye on for sure. Another moment that we get here, Fraser sees his mom dancing with his crush, and that has to, oh my goodness, I can't imagine what's going to happen in the next episode if it is a continuation of what happened, because I could just imagine him, if we thought that him smacking his mom, pulling her hair was bad, I don't know what the hell Fraser's going to do after seeing his mom very seductively dancing with the major and smiling at Fraser at the same time. Very interesting to see how he takes that. The episode kind of wraps up where we see Richard losing his game in the tug of war, and there's a fight going on, and Richard's just standing there, and we hear this kind of voice over him talking to Caitlyn about why tug of war is so important to him, because he's so, the whole thing of balancing. He loves things to be balanced, which I think plays into his character, also plays into his mindset, and I think him just going to him talking about balance, he doesn't find like there's enough balance between maybe his family, about how Caitlyn's spending time with Fraser, how he perceives marriage, how men and women should be together, not women and women or man and man. So I think this is really going to key into Richard really having that tension with his daughter, but also between Sarah and also between him and Fraser, and just a lot of things that come with that character. And as we wrap up, we see Jenny and Maggie eating cake together, and she tells her, She tells Jenny how she met Sarah and why she loves Sarah, but there's going to be something there with that Jenny and Maggie relationship, and they definitely have more things in common in their marriages where they don't feel like they're fully parents of their kids that they've kind of taken in with their marriages. So yeah, man, Maggie and Jenny, it seems like that's going to be an interesting storyline. Again, what are these episodes that Fraser is having, his relationship with his mom now after his mom was like blatantly kind of like dancing seductively in front of him. And I don't know if she knows about him having a crush on the major or not, but definitely a conversation that I'd imagine will be had pretty soon. And then again, this tension between the group. The friendship of Caitlyn spending more time with Fraser, Danny being pissed at his sister, Craig, there's a scene that Danny even says that he wanted to kill himself. So again, this show is about identity and people not knowing who they are, feeling comfortable with who they are, and just discovering themselves. Again, a beautiful story of coming of age, which Luca Guadagnino does a great job at. So I really enjoyed this episode. I love that we got to spend time with a little bit of everyone and just wasn't focused on one character, but focused on a theme of identity. So I really enjoyed this episode, guys. But I want to know what you all thought about right here, right now, episode 3, your pros, your cons. We talked about it last week. The acting from Caitlyn's character is getting a little bit stronger. I think when she plays off someone like Fraser, she seems to be have a little bit more charisma to her character, so her acting kind of picked up for me, and I think overall the show's acting, again, a lot of these supporting cast members, Craig, Danny, Britney, Sam, they're okay, but hopefully as the show continues to go on, they get richer storylines, they get a little bit more screen time. But all in all, I really enjoyed this episode. But again, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my new videos for this show. The Third Day, Lovecraft Country, Ted Lasso, Raised by Wolves, The Boys, a lot of TV watching over here, as well as movies and live streams. So definitely hit that bell so you don't miss any of that content. Thank you all for watching this review. Hope you're staying safe, and we'll see you on the next video.